Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Canadian Immigrant Fair. We're just going to give everyone a minute to join us, and then we'll get started. We let people inside the room at 1 exactly, so the number is, we can see people coming in. So let's just wait another minute and then kick off. Okay, so hello everyone, and thank you for joining us at the Canadian Immigrant Virtual Fair for Western Canada, presented by our sponsor, Bank of Montreal, BMO. We're thrilled to have everyone join us and hope you're enjoying the fair so far. And you've been visiting our wide range of exhibitors. I would like to welcome you to our opening panel discussion on immigration and integration, perspectives from key leaders. So in this presentation, we'll be speaking with these key leaders, these key voices on their perspectives to help newcomers better integrate socially, economically, and culturally on their journey to settle into their new home here in Canada. So I'd like to thank Dr. Gina, Cody, Alice Chung, and Michael Radano for joining me here today to share their perspectives. So during this discussion, we will ask each of our panelists questions relevant to their work, experiences, and the industry they come from. And this will be followed by a general discussion with all panelists on some questions, on the same questions, where we invite them to answer from their own unique perspectives. And finally, we'll open the floor to questions from all of you. If you have any questions for Gina, Alice, or Michael, please feel free to type them in the chat box or in the Q&A. We will get to your questions at the end of the presentation. You can also email us if you're having, if you'd prefer, at info@canadianimmigrant.ca. We're checking the email as well. If for some reason you haven't been able, or your friends haven't been able to join us, the session is being recorded and will also be made available on our website and through our social media channels. So before I begin, my name is Ramya Ramanathan. I'm the editor of Canadian Immigrant magazine and website. And I'm joined here by my colleagues, Laura Jackman, Sanjay Agnihotri, and Ricky Bajaj. So let's get started, shall we? I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Gina, Cody. If you've seen the latest issue of our magazine or been to our homepage recently, you can learn more about her incredible journey. Dr. Cody, Gina, holds a master's degree and a doctorate in building engineering from Concordia University. She has more than 30 years of professional practice as a professional engineer, corporate executive, and principal shareholder of an engineering firm. She has received numerous awards, and in 2018, Concordia University renamed their Faculty of Engineering and Computer Science to the Gina Cody School of Engineering and Computer Science. What an honor, and it's amazing that you could join us today, Dr. Cody. Gina, thank you so much. So the first question I have for you today is, what challenges did you have to address as a business leader, especially as a woman business leader in a new country and in a male-dominated field like engineering and construction? And how did you deal with them? And we were aware that you came 3 decades ago, more than that actually. So we'd love for you to share your experiences.
Thank you, Ramya, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you out there. So going back, it was actually over 4 decades ago, Ramya, that I immigrated to Canada. And the challenge of being in a male-dominated area of practice was really being the only woman in the room. In most of my meetings and deliberations, I was always the only woman in the room. So what was the challenge? What I would tell you may sound a cliche, but it's truly right. Always turn a negative to a positive. So being the only woman in the room, I knew that all the eyes were on me. And over and above that, being in a field that they feel that it doesn't belong to women, it is more male area practice, that makes you even eager to be there and prove to them that they're wrong. So that challenge was, I knew the eyes are on me, but I had to be perfect. I have to know my subject matter. And the good part of it was when you answered and you knew your subject matter, they respected you and they remembered you. By the same token, if you didn't do it right, then they would remember that too. So that pressure makes you to be perfectionist and you can't afford mistakes. So that was my challenge, feeling that I cannot make a mistake. But having said that, you prepare yourself, you know your subject matter, and you, when you go to meetings, you always do your homework, then you should be okay.
Great, thank you for that. You've recently, well, in 2018, you made a $15 million donation to your school, Concordia University. Tell us what prompted this generosity and what you hope to achieve from this.
Okay, going back 40 years ago, when I arrived, I came here during the revolution in Iran. I had only $2,000 in my pocket. So I didn't even have the money to pay my tuition for school. I was supposed to go actually to another school. So after I arrived, which was during Labor Day weekend, and the classes were starting the Tuesday, right after Monday, Labor Day weekend, my brother had arranged for a meeting for me and a professor named Cedric Marsh at Concordia University. He said, this professor wants to meet you before you register at the other school. So I went to meet this professor, and after an hour of speaking with him, he looked at my marks. He had an interview with me and he said, why would you go anywhere else? Come to Concordia, we will give you scholarship. So it was a moment that changed my life. It was, at that time, I really took it for granted. I was happy, I was overjoyed. My life had changed. I didn't have to worry. I was scared. I didn't have to be worried anymore. So I went to Immigration Canada right away, got my work permit. That afternoon, I started working in the lab at university. So fast forward, when I could afford it, I felt, how great would it be that I could make others that are arriving in Canada, like me, to have a different life. What happened to me? How can I make it repeat itself? So that was the motivation between me giving back to the school, which changed my life and afforded me to become who I am. So for me, giving back was not that I should do it. I felt like it is an obligation. And I feel that everyone has that obligation because so many people have paved the road for us and made us to become who we are. So when the time comes that we can do it, I think we need to feel that obligation of delivery and giving back, especially for immigrants. Canada gives us a chance to become who we are. And I feel a bigger weight on my shoulders that I need to give back to this wonderful country of ours. So that was the motivation behind it. And I hope that I have set a pattern for many, many, many more people who are succeeding through their education to give back or through any other occasion. But one of the issues that I am very fond of is education. And we can talk a bit later on this matter, but I think higher education is the most important thing for anyone who immigrates or lives in Canada, because education is a big, great equalizer. It makes us all to be equal. So higher education was very important to me, and giving back to the university, which is a platform for higher education becomes even more important. So that would be my motivation for that.
Great. And sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, I said back to you.
Okay, great. So I want to come back to this later, Dr. Cody, but what jumps out at me is your incredible mindset because you've achieved so much with a positive mindset. So we can come back to this when we're asking you to provide advice to our listeners today. I'm going to go ahead with another question. Based on your own experiences, this is a very general question. Um, as an immigrant, business leader, a professional, and as a women leader as well, how can immigrant potential be maximized by Canada?
There are two things. One thing that Canada has to do, and I don't know why we are not doing that more efficiently. We are bringing professionals, engineers, doctors, pharmacists, you name it, without really creating a platform for their education to be properly recognized. We recognize our education when we give them that visa and accept them as immigrant. But when they come here, there are regulatory bodies on each province that they have their own requirements. So I think as Canada, especially the immigration office where they provide these platforms, should provide assistance for those who are applying to come to our country to start that process sooner. If you're a doctor and you're coming here, you should be able to start your exams probably ahead of time, get your qualifications reviewed. These get reviewed by the immigration offices that have got nothing to do with our regulatory body. So there is a segregation there that has to be brought together. So I think to make the life for our immigrants much easier and more fruitful, I think we need to make process start earlier so that when we bring these doctors here, they don't do jobs that they were not trained for. And it gives us to take advantage of their expertise and experience. So I think that that is one of the most important things. And I would tell those who are coming also to contact the regulatory bodies. Try to start the process earlier. If you're an engineer, my profession is engineering, and every province has got their own rules and regulation. If you need that to have your a regulatory body to give you stamp of approval, start the process earlier. I do understand a lot of them want first to have your immigration to see that you're really an immigrant, and because that is one of the first qualification. We need to change that to allow that those who are also applying can start the process. If they don't get their application, that's fine, they can pay a fee and the regulatory body has gone through that. But I think that would be extremely important for our next generation of immigrant to get a smooth transition to our systems.
Great, thank you very much. That was very insightful, Gina. So next up, we have Alice Chung. Alice is the founder and CEO of Alive Health Center, a chain of 24 boutique health supplement and vitamin stores in BC, Alberta, and Toronto. Alice sits on numerous boards, including the Vancouver General Hospital and the UBC Hospital Foundation Board. Alice was also a winner of our annual RBC Top 25 Canadian Immigrant Awards. So Alice, welcome. So my first question to you is, can you briefly tell us about your journey to Canada? What sort of influence has being an immigrant had on your entrepreneurial journey?
So it started when I left Malaysia in 1966, went to England, and after I graduated and worked for 1 year in England, I couldn't get my immigrant status in UK. So not wanting to return to Malaysia, because I have a very adventurous and wandering spirit, I decided to migrate to Canada. At that time in 1968, it was very easy. You know, with the secretarial course background, I was able to, you know, arrive in Canada. And at that time, I only knew a cousin, and he was studying at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario. So I was surrounded with all the university people, the students, and I thought, hey, why don't I go back to university? So I did that. I took a double major in psychology and social work after 4 years. Then my husband, I got married, and my husband was doing his PhD in Pittsburgh. So I moved down to Pittsburgh, but I couldn't find a job in social work. And so after 3 years, my husband was offered a job to teach at UBC. He has a PhD in bioacoustics. So we moved back to Vancouver, and I tried to get a job in social work and psychology again, but nobody wants to hire me. They said I need a master's degree. So in 1978, I was offered a job in a health food chain with 3 stores. So this is where my business journey started. My boss is a very advanced, very smart businessman, and he, imported bulk vitamins and have it under his private label. And he also believed in large sizes, economy sizes. And he also started what he called a bonus card system, basically an old-fashioned way of like starting a mailing list, like we have now, in digital. And so I worked there for about 5.5 years. During that time, he's a smart guy, but he's not a very hardworking person. So in the summertime, he would go to the beach, under the sun in the summertime, and in the wintertime, he goes to Hawaii. He went to Hawaii. So the job was left for me to run the whole business, the 3 chains, and I did everything, from payroll to delivery to purchasing to, everything. And so, I at that time I said, oh my God, I don't know anything about business. I don't even know how to sell. But I learned everything. When somebody wasn't sick, I would jump on the truck, which he, offered me to deliver. I would jump on the truck, open the store, and start selling. So I never knew the potential in me to sell or be a business person, make deals. And I was known at that time, even, the wheel and deal lady, who always bargain, getting discounts, getting, all kinds of, volume buy. And anyway, it was an opportunity for me. So after 5 years, I felt that, and, I was sort of taken advantage to. And my son was born in 1978. And my boss called me packly after I came back from the hospital every day. Alice, where is this? Where is it? How do I do that? And after 2 weeks, I went back to work. This was not a wise decision, but he just could not manage the business. So my poor son was left with mother-in-law, no breastfeeding. And at that time, there were like 3 months of EI. I never took it. I went back to work and felt after 5.5 years that it's enough. So I opened my first health food store in 1983 in Richmond Center. Yeah. And I remember at that time, I don't have a lot of money and couldn't do any advertising. And my first day of sale was $150. But I never give up. I keep working. I work 7 days a week. And my husband and son would come and have lunch with me on a Saturday. But soon the business improved and improved. So my first break came in 1984, the following year. I don't know. I think you don't. Oh yeah, Michael would know. Oak Ridge Mall. Oak Ridge Mall is in high end and where affluent people shop. So when I tried to get a store, to lease a store there, they said, no, you are inexperienced, you don't have any background, you have a small store in Richmond Center. So I couldn't get in, but I was persistent. So I knew somebody in the leasing department, one of the store that I used to manage. She knew me from there. And so she said to the leasing director, he said, Michael, he said, are you a Christian? I said, if you are, you should give this lady a chance. She's smart, she's nice. And so after two health food chain, big health food chain turned them down because of the high rent, they offered me the job. So once I was in Oak Ridge Mall, then everybody home, shopping mall that I want to open more stores, or they will solicit me. They'll say, hey, would you like to come and open a store in my mall? And that's how it all started. So it was a very lucky break for me. And the more what they do, I don't know, in retail, when you do your sales, you have a basic rent. But if you do more than your basic rent, you have to pay percentage rent, like 6% or 8%. So I have to pay percentage rent from day one in Oak Ridge. And that's how it all started, with me opening more and more stores. And then I went out to Alberta and Toronto, Ontario, and opened, my other stores. So that's how it all began.
Great, thank you for that. Very inspiring. So you've talked about your journey, and do you just want to briefly tell us what challenges did you face on this entrepreneurial journey, and how did you deal with them specifically? If you want to just bring up a couple of points.
So the challenges are, money, finance, but I was able to somehow manage from one store to another, making the money from Richmond Center, to Oak Ridge. And from Oak Ridge, I was able to, and believe it or not, I did not even get any business loan. Between my husband and I, my husband was working in UBC. Then he changed the job and worked at the Workers' Compensation Board doing research. So between us, it was the money was a big problem, but we managed to be very frugal, hiring the best contractor, the most efficient and low-cost contractor to build the store in the mall. And then I think to get the inventory going, hiring people. So we have a culture then. We set up a culture, that we don't waste. We buy only when necessary, and we only buy goods that we need. So like ordering is one of the most challenging. Is to order products that you can sell. Order enough that you can turn over. So I always tell my staff now, ordering is an art. So we managed to somehow, and I don't know how, but we managed to, keep going and that. And the other thing is hiring people. The challenges of hiring the best people, the most knowledgeable, and staff, because retail is a big challenge because the turnover is big, and you have to be very careful about hiring the people that you trust. And so I always started, with training and educating them, and I get vendors who offer me free education in the evening after work to train my staff on their products. But at the same time, they will train them about the whole, about vitamins, what it does and everything. So I use every resource that I can, to help to train and minimize. And then I do my pricing very, very carefully. And I always go to 99 cents, not 134, always 199, And so I set up a program where, from so much to so much, you go this way. So by doing that, I'm able to save a lot of money because, we have a lot of inventory, a lot of SKUs. And when you can save, 20 cents on one and 30 cents on another, it kind of adds up, So, somehow I managed to get over the challenges of finance and able to manage very frugally and save. And so this is my advice to other retailers as well. You really have to watch every single penny, and you have to make every single deal that can possibly have. You need to talk to the vendors about giving you the best discount they can offer you, and you try to volume buy. Because of my multiple stores, I can able to secure that.
Great, thank you for that. So my last question to you for now is, in a minute or two, can you tell us about This is a large question. We can talk about this for a long time, but based on your own experiences, how do you think immigrant potential can be maximized by Canada?
I totally agree what Gina said, about the new immigrant, but she's a step ahead, and she said, the process should start from the country, because I see, we're in such a shortage of doctors, nurses, engineers, all the professionals. I mean, right now, when your doctor retire, you cannot even find anybody. There's no GP taking you on. And nurses, we have such a shortage, especially at COVID time. And yet we have all these people that I know, from my nanny to everything. They're nurses, they're pharmacists, they're engineers, they're doctors from Europe, from all over the world. And they cannot find a job because of your no Canadian experience, no licenses. And I think Gina has an amazing idea, to get the process going before they arrive, find out how. And I think that Canada should maybe even have I don't know, some kind of a subsidy for people that are professionals that are in need of, and maybe provide them with that access, because when they come, they have their expenses are very limited, and they have to work, find a job if they can, and if they have to do their licenses, licensing and all the things they have to do in the evening, they need money, I mean, there may be a grant, at a very good interest rate or no interest rate, for these immigrants. And we need them so desperately. And Canada is definitely not maximizing all these amazing professionals that we desperately need in Canada.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for that. We'll hear more from you shortly. I'm going to turn this over to our final panelist, Michael Radano. Michael is the Director of Employment, Language, and Social Enterprises Services at MOSAIC. Michael has over 30 years of international experience in engineering, product marketing, sales, business development, IT management, consulting, and executive management in both the for-profit and the nonprofit sectors. Michael is also the president of the Affiliation of Multicultural Societies and Settlement Agencies. Thank you for joining us, Michael. I have 3 questions for you today. The first one is, what are the common challenges that you see immigrants come across in the settlement journey? MOSAIC is a settlement agency, just to clarify, especially skilled immigrants and professionals. How can they best deal with it?
So before I dive into and answer the specific questions that you've posed, I think it's worthwhile for me to spend a minute and telling you about the organization that I work for, and that will provide the right context for everybody. So I work for MOSAIC. MOSAIC has been around for more than 40 years. We have 350 employees, 300 contractors, $33 million in revenue, which makes us one of the largest settlement and employment service provider in Canada. We have 500 volunteers that help us deliver 38 programs to 17,000 clients every year. And we also touch the lives of an additional 16,000 individuals for our events. And we partner with roughly about 1,500 employers, because part of the services we offer is not just to immigrants, but to British Columbians as well. And the reason I'm telling you all of that is to provide context to what I will say later on. And one of the things I take pride in working here is MOSAIC is true to its name, in the sense that our board, our executive, our staff, our clients are a true reflection of the MOSAIC that makes up Canada. And so I get excited coming here every day. In answer to your questions, there are many challenges that newcomers and immigrants face, be it language barriers, employment opportunities, housing, access to services, transportation, cultural differences, raising our kids, prejudice, isolation, and let's not forget, for some of us like me, who came from a tropical island, the weather. But I won't touch on all of those. I want to speak to 3 specific challenges, right? The first one being language barriers. I have met, I came here in 1981. So I've done a lot of volunteering. I've done for-profit work, and now I'm in not-for-profit. I've met a lot of very skilled immigrants that are civil engineers or have different professional backgrounds, but they could not express themselves, right? They're very smart, but I could not understand them. So language barriers is a huge stumbling block for a lot of newcomers, including me. I had to learn how to pronounce things differently so that people can better understand what I'm saying, right? So being able to communicate effectively is really important, whether that's for jobs, schooling, and to function. And so some of the advice I give people that I mentor or I encounter is lots of practice, and don't be afraid, don't be ashamed. Watch CBC, whether that's French or English, depending on which province you're in. Take classes. The government pays for a lot of instructions for newcomers. Socialize with English or French speakers, and join language circles. Sorry. The idea is to get out there and practice and stumble and make mistakes, but don't give up. Right? So that's one challenge or barrier, if you want to call it that. The next one is employment. And we all know, I mean, you don't really feel fulfilled in life till, and a lot of us attach a lot of importance to our job. We derive so much of our worth and all that through what we do for a living and how we contribute. So that's a big area. And Dr. Cody and Alice already mentioned the issue about credential recognition and work experience and so forth. So what I tell people is, for certain profession, as Dr. Cody already mentioned, try to start the process as early as possible. And what I find is people are not even aware of the services that government has. For example, the federal government spends about $25 million on pre-arrival services, whereby you can get a lot of information about the professions you're going to get into. And in some instances, some other bodies are willing to look at or provide you information so that you're better prepared. So that's one thing that people can do. Also related to Canadian work experience, I tell people, if somebody will not hire you for the specific job you want, will they hire you for a related job or a lower level job, but in the same environment, the same industry? I have had the opportunity to work in Europe, in the US, and in Japan. And every time I go, I have to learn, how do you say certain technical things or business things, even in English, but in that country? What terms do they use? What is the industry lingo? There's a lot that you have to learn that goes beyond just getting the experience. So I encourage people to spend time to learn that. And one thing that I find as an immigrant, sometimes we're not very good at detaching our core skill set and knowledge from the job that we do. And by coaching people through that, I can, for example, take somebody who knows a lot about the semiconductor industry. They come here to BC and say, I want to get into the semiconductor industry, and we only have one company. So that's not going to work too well. But I say, what is your core skill set, and what other industries can you apply that in? So that's really important. And also, people are so afraid of making a mistake, in that they say, if I don't build a career in this area, that's it, life is over. And while I don't run businesses like Dr. Cody and Alice, I am on my 15th career. And the way I've managed to do that is I'm always learning, going back to school and trying new things and be open.
Great advice.
And not be afraid.
Thank you, Michael. Great advice. So, my next question was about specific programs and initiatives that people can access, but you've already talked about them. Work on your language skills, use those programs, use all available services and resources, be aware of what's out there, look at your core skill sets and develop them, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Is there anything else that you want to add in the next minute?
As it relates to this, there's a lack of knowledge, I think, overall about all the programs that already exist. For those who don't know, and I don't want to sound like a speaking piece for the federal government, but we do have to recognize that the Canadian immigration system, even though there's a lot of room for improvement, it's one of the best in the world. The government spends about $800 million IRCC last fiscal year. We have 564 service organizations that serves more than 500,000 people. So the challenge is to let people know about all those different programs that can help them. So that's one of the things we need to do a better job at.
Okay, and broadly, this is how you think immigrant potential can be maximized. Is there anything else, another point that you'd like to add?
Okay, so I have 3 quick points. One is we have pockets of excellence in Canada, whether that's in a region or an entity that is doing something really well. For example, there are people that are supporting entrepreneurs. There's a program for that, but it tends to be mostly for one ethnic group. There's no reason why we can't repackage that and address the other ethnic groups. Or we have people that are supporting immigrants in a way that is very, very impactful in one region. We need to again package that for the other region. So that's one thing, is leveraging pockets of excellence. The other one is I look at, okay, where do we have the biggest gap? Granted, we're talking about professionals here, but we also have visible minority women caregivers that have lots of barriers in terms of being able to access things. So increasing things like childcare and support will allow them to learn English and be more fulfilled in their integration and expedite their integration. And last but not least, if you look at the numbers, we have about 700,000 clients that receive, that's across Canada, that receive orientation and needs assessments and all that, and only about 50-some-odd thousand that receive employment support. So there's a bit of a disconnect. So there's a lot more money that has to be spent in creating internship opportunities for immigrants and tailoring the mainstream programs to be more friendly to immigrants.
Great, thank you so much for that. Thank you, Michael. Great information. So next up, I'm going to pose one broad question to all speakers before we get to the Q&A. I'm looking at the time, and we probably have just a minute for responses, and then we'll spend a few minutes on the Q&A. So everyone, if you have, folks, if you have questions for Gina, Alice, or Michael, please send them in the chat box. We're getting some questions, a number of questions actually already. So let's see how many we can get to. So Gina, let's start with you. Broadly, what personal attributes do you believe will support newcomers and immigrants integrate better and facilitate their success in Canada?
Their success really, first of all, Michael touched on many aspects which were extremely relevant to the success of the new immigrants in Canada. But I think also they need to improve their education. I strongly suggest that they register, whatever their profession is, try to take a course or something that relates to that to improve on what you are. So you have another Canadian verification of your experience and expertise. So whether it's a diploma, whether it's a master, whether it's, you want to go as far as a PhD. And actually one of the questions I saw somebody said, I have a large family. Can I take courses and study? And absolutely. For example, I know Concordia, one of the greatest things that they have, you can work and all the courses can be taken at night. So if you are willing to give it all you have, you can do that. You go and work during the day and at night you take courses, and you will be surprised. President of Bell Canada, which is the biggest company in Canada, he worked during the day and took courses at night at Concordia, and it was an honorary doctorate we gave him. So there are many people who succeeded quite to the highest level by working during the day and taking courses at night. So don't give up and pursue that knowledge. That would be my advice to them.
Great, thank you for that. Alice?
I feel that if you want, you migrate to Canada, some of the personal attributes is you must integrate into the melting pot. You must be proactive. You have to be the one to make the first move. You have to be adaptable. Many immigrants come here and they find it difficult because of the culture, language, environment, and everything. No friends, but they must adapt. Otherwise, they'll be very unhappy and they want to go home, and they will not be successful in whatever they want to do. And be helpful to others, your neighbors and your kids, school, whatever. And be flexible, be warm, be sincere, and outgoing, even if you're not. You must try to be outgoing. You must go and mix with other nationalities, not just your own, because you will not get anywhere if you stick to your own group. And be understanding, to others, because some of them are not used to immigrants. You look different, you act different, your culture is different, and you must understand from their point of view. Some of them may never have left Canada. They only know Canadians or the Americans across the border, but they don't know you from Malaysia, from Philippines, from Russia, from everywhere. We're all different. So these are very important things that people need to remember, and they must join in the group, be one of them, be one of the Canadians. Otherwise, you will be very lost and be very unhappy.
Thank you, Alice. And Michael, over to you.
So quickly, I think being open-minded and flexible helps. And also, it took a huge effort to come here. So keep the drive, keep the perseverance going, don't give up. And lastly, having a positive attitude. People don't like to deal with grouchy folks, right? People like to deal with people that are positive and all that, no matter how, you may be treading water underneath, but outside you want to be welcoming, you want to be embracing.
Great. So we have time for a couple of questions. And whatever else you don't have time to get to, we'll send you those questions if it's specific, or you can share your email at the end. So the first question we're going to take is, how do you respond to someone when they say it's not what you have, but it's who you know?
So I can take that quickly. The concept of networking does not exist in a lot of other countries. So of course you do need to have the right skills and all that, but it's really important here for you to have connections and network with others. So it's not the old nepotism idea, but the idea is for you to be connected to people who can help you, who can introduce you to the right folks, and who can teach you about the lingo, who can be your mentor, for example, and give you career advice, because you can't do any of this in isolation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Gina, would you like to?
Networking is important, but I think it's you taking the initiative. I remember, I can have many examples. I had an immigrant who had arrived a week, came to my office, knocked at the door with his CV, his resume, and said, I need a job. He was an engineer, highly experienced and with a lot, but his language was not that great. Something that I strongly recommend, improve your language. That's extremely important. You need to communicate. Having said that, this person was a structural engineer who was a great guy. He walked in. I took that as an initiative, a person who comes and knocks on the door and comes and says, I want the job. I put him in a room, gave him a couple of questions, and I said, you have 3 hours, and here's the building code, and here paper. He didn't have anything with him. I said, if you are good, I will give you the job because you are really adamant that you need a job and you want a job. You will have a job if you are good at it. So I think they can take and I had no idea who this guy was. He walked off the street. So networking is important, But really, people want great people. They want people who know what they are doing, especially for engineers and those who are in computer science. Technical stuff, really, people don't care who you know. They want to know your experience. And with online education, everybody can take courses now. The world has changed. When I came 40 years ago, things were different. Now, it doesn't matter where you are. You can be the best and you can compete with anybody in Canada. And when you arrive, you can show them that you have taken these courses. So try to get involved in online courses, because there was a lot of questions on how do I get courses on the chat box. And I think they can pursue online courses. All universities offer them. Now you can even do your master while you are in your country. Canada has come up with a the government of Canada has allowed university to allow students. That's because of COVID, but this may continue because some of the courses you can take abroad. So that's another issue that they can take into their hand.
Great. And Alice?
You know, it's difficult when a new immigrant comes, and to know, have the connections, So basically unless you're lucky and you have a lot of families, already in here. But I find that it's really up to yourself, if you wanted to, become let's say a health food retailer, or a health food salesperson, and do your homework, take, like say Gina said, go online and learn some of the products knowledge, vitamins, supplements, herbs, and when you apply for a job, you should be ready, because, I interview a lot of people, and I will be impressed with person who already have the knowledge about what we're selling and about retailing, how to be a good salesperson. So really, you have to sell yourself when you go to an interview, by doing your homework, because depending on connections is not always there. Let's say Gina said you want to be an engineer, you want to be, whatever, you just have to do, you really left on your own initiative, you have to sell yourself, and be persistent with the job. So if they say, I'll take your resume and I'll think about it, give them a call, give them another call, maybe 2 or 3 calls if you really want the job, because that shows your interest. And me as an employer, like, hey, this young man, this young woman really want to work for me, so that's what my advice would be.
Great. Thank you so much. Incredible advice. We have so many questions coming in, but that's all we have time for right now. So we'll forward on any questions to you for sure. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Gina, Alice, and Michael, for taking the time to speak with us today. This has been an excellent session. And thank you to our presenting sponsor, Bank of Montreal, our platinum sponsors, Immigration Consultants of Canada, Regulatory Council, BC Responsible and Problem Gambling Program, our gold sponsors, Fix BC and British Council, IELTS, Canada, silver sponsor, Fair Grant Writing, and to all of our exhibitors. So, there are exhibitors out there. We're open till 4 p.m. today. So please visit them, chat directly with them, that you'd not normally have access to them. And, you're going to be in chat in line. So be patient for a minute or two when there are, over 1,000 attendees today. So be patient, and if it does take a minute or two for people to connect with you. So please feel free to rejoin the fair, and we'll have our next session coming up, Banking 101, from members from the BMO team. So thank you again, Gina, Alice, and Michael. It was an incredible pleasure to have you here, even for this short amount of time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Ciao.